July 6, 2019. New York City. Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. The official cause of death: suicide by hanging. Within hours, conspiracy theories flooded the internet. Claims of murder, cover-ups, powerful figures silencing a witness. But while speculation dominated headlines, a quieter, more important story unfolded in federal courthouses across America. The painstaking work of prosecutors, investigators, and, most courageously, survivors who refused to let Epstein's death erase the truth. This is not a story about conspiracy. It is a story about architecture. Not the architecture of buildings alone, but the architecture of impunity. How wealth, legal loopholes, and institutional indifference combine to create spaces where crimes can occur beyond the reach of justice. And at the center of this architecture stood a 28-acre island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Little St. James. Purchased by Epstein in 1998 for $7.95 million, this island became more than a private retreat. It became a case study in how physical space can be engineered for exploitation, and how systems designed to protect the vulnerable can be manipulated to shield the powerful. What follows is not speculation. Every detail comes from federal court documents, FBI evidence logs, victim testimony under oath in U.S. v. Ghislaine Maxwell, architectural blueprints entered as evidence, and investigative reporting by the Miami Herald's Julie K. Brown, whose 2018 series Perversion of Justice reignited the case after a decade of silence. We begin not with Epstein, but with the island itself. Because to understand how abuse persisted for decades, we must first understand the environment deliberately constructed to enable it. Little St. James sits 2 miles southeast of St. Thomas in the Caribbean Sea. From satellite imagery, it appears as a postcard-perfect tropical paradise. White sand beaches, turquoise water, lush vegetation. But overlay the island with architectural plans filed in the 2008 Virgin Islands civil case Doe versus Epstein, and a different reality emerges. The main compound, dubbed the main house in victim testimony, was not positioned for ocean views as luxury resorts typically are. It was oriented inward, toward a central courtyard surrounded by guest villas arranged in a semicircle. This layout created what security experts call a panopticon effect, a design where occupants in the central building can observe all surrounding structures without being observed themselves. Surveillance camera placements documented in FBI evidence logs confirm this. 27 cameras covered every beach access point, every path between villas, every boat landing. Yet curiously, 0 cameras faced the interior rooms of the main house or the massage rooms where victims reported abuse occurred. This was not an oversight. It was a feature. Epstein's former pilot Larry Visosky testified under oath that guests were instructed upon arrival. Cameras are for your safety. Do not disable them. But safety for whom? The answer lies in the island's access control system. Federal investigators documented a single boat dock, the only legal point of entry. All other shorelines were lined with no trespassing signs and monitored by private security personnel whose contracts, obtained through Virgin Islands court records, specified they reported directly to Epstein, not to local law enforcement. Visitors arriving by private yacht were required to surrender mobile phones and cameras at the dock. Epstein's staff provided island phones, basic models without cameras or internet access. This digital isolation served 2 purposes. It prevented victims from calling for help, and it prevented guests from documenting what occurred there. One survivor, identified in court documents as Jane Doe 15, testified, "I was told my phone would be safely stored during my visit. When I asked to call my mother to say I'd arrived safely, I was told island policy prohibited outside calls for security reasons. I was 17. This pattern repeats across dozens of testimonies. Isolation as a tool of control, not through overt violence initially, but through the systematic removal of escape routes, both physical and digital. But architecture alone cannot enable decades of criminal activity. It requires complicity or, at minimum, indifference from institutions sworn to protect the vulnerable. Here we confront the most disturbing truth about Epstein's island. It operated not in shadowy secrecy, but in plain sight, with repeated opportunities for intervention that were systematically missed. The timeline is documented in Department of Justice Office of Professional Responsibility reports released after Epstein's 2019 death. In March 2005, the Palm Beach Police Department opened an investigation after the parents of a 14-year-old girl reported she'd been recruited to give Epstein a massage that escalated to sexual assault. Detectives identified 36 minor victims through meticulous work. They secured a sworn statement from Epstein's house manager detailing how underage girls were scheduled for appointments. They prepared a 53-page affidavit requesting a search warrant for Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. State prosecutors initially filed a single felony charge of solicitation of prostitution. But then intervention. Epstein's legal team, led by prominent attorneys including Alan Dershowitz and Kenneth Starr, negotiated directly with then U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta. The result: a non-prosecution agreement signed in 2007 that granted Epstein and any potential co-conspirators federal immunity for crimes involving 40-plus identified minors. Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 state prostitution charges involving a single minor. He served 13 months in the Palm Beach County Jail, but under a work release program allowing him to leave jail for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. During this period, flight logs confirm he traveled to his Caribbean islands multiple times. The non-prosecution agreement was kept secret from victims, violating the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act. They learned of it only after Epstein had served his sentence. In 2019, a federal judge ruled this secrecy illegal. Acosta resigned as U.S. Labor Secretary following public outcry. This was not a failure of evidence. Detectives had overwhelming proof. It was a failure of will, a system bending to protect a wealthy defendant rather than vulnerable children. And the island remained operational throughout. When Epstein purchased Little St. James, he inherited existing structures from previous owners. But architectural permits filed with the Virgin Islands Department of Planning and Natural Resources reveal extensive renovations between 2001 and 2005, precisely the period when Florida investigators were building their case. The most significant addition, a structure victims referred to as the Temple, officially permitted as a music pavilion. This domed building featured blue-striped exterior walls resembling a Greek temple. Interior blueprints show a circular main room with a raised platform at its center, surrounded by benches. No plumbing, no kitchen facilities, not designed for residence or entertainment in any conventional sense. During Ghislaine Maxwell's 2021 trial, FBI forensic analysts testified they recovered photographs from Epstein's confiscated computers showing the interior of this structure. The images depicted young women and girls in states of undress. Maxwell's defense team argued these were consensual adult activities, but victim testimony contradicted this. Virginia Giuffre, then Roberts, testified under oath that at age 17, Epstein directed her to the temple after a massage session and instructed her to entertain guests. She described being photographed there against her will. Another survivor, identified as Jane Doe 107, testified she was told the temple was where important men made important decisions, and that her presence there was part of her duty. The architectural purpose becomes clear when analyzed alongside victim accounts. This structure was not for Epstein's personal use. It was a stage, a space designed to normalize exploitation for powerful visitors by framing it within an aesthetic of classical grandeur. The temple's design deliberately evoked antiquity, mythology, power, psychologically distancing participants from the reality of what occurred there. This is architectural gaslighting, using beauty and symbolism to obscure abuse. After Epstein's death, the new owner of the island announced plans to demolish the temple. Preservationists debated whether erasing physical evidence of crimes serves justice or enables forgetting. There are no easy answers, but the existence of this structure and its deliberate aesthetic reveals a calculated understanding of psychology, that environment shapes perception, and that beauty can be weaponized to conceal horror. The island's infrastructure extended beyond buildings. Federal investigators documented a sophisticated transportation network enabling Epstein's operation. Flight logs from the National Transportation Safety Board show Epstein's private jets, Nicknamed the Lolita Express by tabloids, flew over 1,500 flights between 1995 and 2018. Routes consistently followed a pattern. Departures from Palm Beach or New York to Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, then direct flights to Cyril E. King Airport in St. Thomas. From there, a 15-minute helicopter ride or private boat transfer to Little St. James. Crucially, flight manifests obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal most passengers were not listed by full name. Instead, entries read Guest 1, Guest 2, or used only first names. This opacity was not accidental. Epstein's pilots testified they were instructed to maintain minimal documentation. Why? Because the less paper trail existed, the harder it became to prove who visited the island during specific timeframes when abuse occurred. This documentation gap created plausible deniability for visitors, a feature, not a bug, of the system. But gaps in evidence do not equal innocence. During Maxwell's trial, prosecutors introduced a handwritten calendar recovered from Epstein's safe. Dated July 2001, it listed appointments with descriptors like massage with Jane, followed by initials matching known victims. Adjacent entries noted GM arrival and important visitor, discretion required. While this calendar did not name powerful figures explicitly, it established a pattern. Maxwell coordinated schedules, victims were treated as appointments, and certain visits required heightened secrecy. The transportation system served this pattern, moving victims and visitors along parallel but separate tracks to minimize witness connections. Survivors testified they were often flown on different aircraft than Epstein's prominent guests, kept in separate villas, and instructed not to speak with other young women on the island. This compartmentalization, architectural, logistical, psychological, prevented victims from corroborating each other's experiences until years later when attorneys began connecting cases. Isolation works not through walls alone, but through information control. Epstein understood this. His island was engineered not just to hide crimes from the outside world, but to prevent victims from realizing they were not alone. Perhaps the most haunting architectural detail of Little St. James emerges not from blueprints, but from victim testimony about sound. Multiple survivors described a specific acoustic phenomenon in the main house's massage rooms: thick carpeting on floors, heavy velvet drapes covering windows, walls lined with acoustic paneling disguised as decorative molding. These features created what audio engineers call a dead room, a space where sound does not carry beyond its walls. One survivor testified, "When the door closed, the world disappeared. No noise from outside reached me, and nothing I said or did could be heard beyond that room. It was like being sealed in a vacuum." This was not accidental luxury. It was acoustic engineering for exploitation, ensuring cries, protests, or pleas for help would not reach staff members or other guests potentially within earshot. Contrast this with the island's exterior spaces: open-air pavilions, beachfront areas, pool decks, all designed for socializing, for witnesses, for the appearance of normalcy. The architecture created a dual reality: public spaces performing innocence, private spaces engineered for isolation. This spatial duality mirrors the legal duality Epstein cultivated. Publicly, he presented as a financial genius, a philanthropist funding science research at Harvard and MIT, a friend to presidents and princes. Privately, as documented in victim testimony, he operated a trafficking operation targeting vulnerable girls from broken homes, foster care systems, and impoverished communities. He exploited their need for mentorship, their desire for opportunity, their trust in adult authority. Recruiters like Maxwell approached girls in malls, outside high schools, at nail salons, offering modeling careers, educational opportunities, financial support for families. The pitch was always the same: Jeffrey can change your life. For girls with absent parents, mounting bills, dreams of college they couldn't afford, this offer felt like salvation. Only upon arrival at Epstein's properties did the bait and switch become clear. The modeling session became a massage. The massage became sexual assault. And the island, with its dead rooms, its camera blind spots, its digital isolation, ensured there would be no witnesses, no evidence, no escape. This is how trafficking operates, not through chains, but through architecture of deception. not through overt force initially, but through psychological manipulation amplified by environment. The legal aftermath of Epstein's operation reveals both failure and fragile hope. After the Miami Herald's 2018 investigation exposed the leniency of Epstein's 2008 plea deal, federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York reopened the case. They built a new indictment based on victim testimony, financial records tracing payments to recruiters, and digital evidence recovered from Epstein's devices after his 2019 arrest. The indictment charged sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy, crimes carrying potential life sentences. Epstein's death ended his prosecution, but not the pursuit of accountability. Ghislaine Maxwell stood trial in 2021. The prosecution's case rested not on conspiracy theories, but on documented patterns. Maxwell's role in recruiting victims as young as 14, scheduling their appointments, normalizing sexual abuse through her presence during initial encounters, and instructing victims on how to perform massages that escalated to sexual acts. The defense argued Maxwell was Epstein's scapegoat, a woman trapped in an abusive relationship forced to comply with his demands. The jury convicted her on 5 counts, including sex trafficking of a minor. She received a 20-year sentence. The verdict sent a message: enablers of trafficking bear responsibility. But justice remained incomplete. Over 30 women came forward as victims in civil cases. Many received financial settlements through the Epstein Victims Compensation Program established after his death. While these settlements provided resources for therapy, education, and rebuilding lives, survivors emphasized money could not erase trauma. Virginia Giuffre stated publicly, "No amount of money gives back the childhood they stole, but accountability matters. Not for revenge, for prevention. So the next girl might be believed sooner." This is the core lesson of the Epstein case. The greatest enabler of abuse is not architecture or wealth alone. It is disbelief. The Palm Beach police believed the first victim in 2005, but prosecutors dismissed her credibility. Teachers noticed girls missing school for modeling trips, but assumed parental consent. Flight attendants saw young girls boarding private jets with older men but assumed they were family. Society's default setting too often favors powerful men over vulnerable girls. Epstein exploited this bias deliberately. He surrounded himself with celebrities, scientists, politicians, not just for access, but for camouflage. Their presence created an aura of legitimacy that made accusations seem implausible. Why would a man with those connections need to abuse children? People asked. The answer: because power does not eliminate predatory impulse. It enables it. And systems designed to protect the powerful often fail the vulnerable. What happened on Little St. James was not unique in human history. Isolated locations have long facilitated exploitation: remote compounds, private estates, vessels in international waters. What made Epstein's operation notable was not its novelty, but its brazenness. Operating within U.S. territory, using American financial systems, flying on FAA-regulated aircraft, while evading meaningful consequences for decades. This was not a failure of law. U.S. statutes against child sex trafficking are clear and severe. It was a failure of enforcement, a system where wealth purchases not just luxury but legal leniency. The 2008 non-prosecution agreement represented the pinnacle of this corruption. A secret deal negotiated outside normal channels, violating victims' rights, approved by a U.S. attorney who later admitted he knew the deal was poor judgment, but claimed pressure from Epstein's legal team and unnamed higher-ups influenced his decision. After Epstein's 2019 arrest, the Department of Justice opened an investigation into the handling of the 2008 case. Their report, released in November 2020, concluded Acosta exercised poor judgment, but found no evidence of criminal misconduct in the plea deal negotiation. Victims' attorneys criticized the report as insufficient, failing to address why career prosecutors who recommended serious charges were overruled, why victims were kept in the dark, why a case with 36 identified minors resulted in charges involving only 1. These questions remain partially unanswered. But one truth emerged clearly from all investigations. Epstein's ability to operate for decades stemmed not from perfect secrecy, but from systemic tolerance of powerful men's transgressions. When police investigate a poor man for soliciting a minor, they file charges immediately. When the accused is a billionaire with connections to presidents, they negotiate. This two-tiered justice system is the real architecture of impunity, not stone and mortar, but privilege and presumption of innocence selectively applied. Little St. James was merely the physical manifestation of a deeper societal failure, our willingness to look away when the powerful abuse the vulnerable, especially when victims are poor, young, female, and lacking social capital. The island today stands under new ownership. Purchased in May 2023 for $60 million by Stephen Deckoff, founder of private equity firm Black Diamond Capital Management, Little St. James is slated for transformation into a luxury resort. Deckoff announced plans to demolish structures associated with Epstein's crimes, including the temple, and rebuild with high-end accommodations. Victim advocates expressed mixed reactions. Some argued erasing physical evidence enables historical amnesia. Future generations might forget what occurred there. Others supported demolition, stating survivors should not be reminded of trauma whenever the island appears in media. There are no perfect solutions, but one proposal gained traction. Preserve one structure as a memorial and education center focused not on Epstein, but on survivors' resilience and systemic reforms needed to prevent future trafficking. Similar models exist at sites of historical trauma, from Holocaust museums to civil rights landmarks. The purpose would not be morbid tourism, but education. Teaching visitors how trafficking operates, how to recognize grooming tactics, how to support survivors, how to demand accountability from institutions. This approach centers healing over sensationalism. It transforms a site of pain into a catalyst for prevention. Whether this vision materializes remains uncertain, but the conversation itself matters. It forces society to confront what we do with spaces of trauma. Do we erase them? Do we preserve them as warnings? Do we transform them into something life-giving? These questions extend beyond one island. They apply to every location where power has been abused. The hotel rooms where Weinstein assaulted women, the university offices where Nasser abused athletes, the military bases where commanders ignored rape reports. How we memorialize or forget these spaces reflects our commitment to justice. Little St. James offers a test case. Will we allow its history to be sandblasted away beneath luxury finishes? Or will we honor survivors by ensuring their suffering catalyzes lasting change? The most important voices in this story have been the survivors themselves. Women like Courtney Wild, who fought for over a decade to overturn the secret plea deal that silenced her. Virginia Giuffre, who sued Prince Andrew and reached a settlement that included his donation to victims' charities. Annie Farmer, who testified at Maxwell's trial despite intense public scrutiny. And dozens of others who chose anonymity but provided crucial testimony to investigators. Their courage stands in stark contrast to the cowardice of enablers. Staff who saw underage girls but said nothing. Pilots who flew them but claimed ignorance. Lawyers who negotiated deals protecting predators. Friends who partied on the island but later claimed they didn't know. Survivors faced immense obstacles. Statute of limitations barring civil suits, trauma impairing memory, public shaming when they came forward, legal teams funded by billionaires attacking their credibility. Yet they persisted. They connected with each other through attorneys. They shared stories that revealed patterns. They filed lawsuits that forced document disclosure. They spoke to journalists when no one else would listen. Their collective action, not conspiracy theories, not internet speculation, brought accountability. Maxwell's conviction resulted directly from victim testimony. The DOJ investigation into the plea deal resulted from victim advocacy. Cultural shifts in how we view sexual abuse resulted from survivors speaking truth to power. This is the antidote to architectures of impunity. Collective courage. Not lone heroes, but networks of survivors supporting each other, believing each other, fighting together. Epstein's island isolated victims deliberately. The survivors' movement reconnected them, transforming isolation into solidarity. This transformation holds the key to prevention, because trafficking thrives in silence. It dies in sunlight, not the sensationalized glare of conspiracy theories, but the steady, factual light of documented truth shared by those who lived it. So what lessons does Little St. James offer beyond this single case? First, isolation enables abuse. Physical isolation, remote locations, controlled access. Digital isolation, confiscated phones, no internet. Social isolation, separating victims from each other, from support networks. Any environment combining these elements warrants scrutiny. Parents should question programs requiring total isolation of minors. Employers should question workplaces restricting communication. Communities should question properties operating beyond normal oversight. Second, documentation gaps serve predators. Missing flight manifests, vague appointment calendars, destroyed records, these are red flags. Transparency protects the vulnerable. Third, wealth distorts justice. Epstein's case proves money buys legal advantages, but not forever. Persistent advocacy can overcome even well-funded defenses. Fourth, believe survivors early. The first victim in Palm Beach was telling the truth. Had she been believed in 2005, dozens of girls might have been spared. Institutional skepticism toward abuse claims, especially when the accused is powerful, must end. Fifth, enablers bear responsibility. Maxwell did not personally assault victims in most cases, but she recruited them, scheduled them, normalized the abuse. This complicity is criminal. We must hold not just perpetrators accountable, but those who facilitate, ignore, or cover up crimes. These lessons apply far beyond islands and billionaires. They apply to coaches abusing athletes, priests abusing parishioners, teachers abusing students, partners abusing spouses. The architecture changes, boarding schools instead of private islands, university dorms instead of villas, but the patterns remain. Isolation, secrecy, power imbalance, institutional protection. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward prevention. Little St. James will likely reopen as a resort within 2 years. Tourists will swim in waters where victims were trafficked. They will dine in rebuilt structures where abuse occurred. They may never know the island's history. This erasure troubles many survivors. But physical spaces do not hold memory, people do. The island itself is just land, water, stone. What matters is whether we carry the truth forward. Whether we teach our children about grooming tactics. Whether we demand prosecutors treat wealthy defendants no differently than poor ones. Whether we believe victims the first time they speak. Whether we support organizations fighting trafficking. Whether we vote for leaders committed to equal justice. These actions matter more than preserving a building. Memory lives not in architecture, but in action. The true memorial to survivors is a world where their suffering prevents future suffering. Where no girl is recruited with false promises of modeling careers. Where no island operates beyond the law. Where no plea deal silences victims. Where power does not purchase impunity. This world does not exist yet, but it is possible. Not through conspiracy theories that distract from real accountability. Not through sensationalism that exploits trauma for clicks, but through documented truth, survivor-centered advocacy, institutional reform, and collective courage to believe the vulnerable over the powerful. Little St. James was an architecture of impunity. Our task is to build an architecture of accountability in law, in culture, in conscience. The island's stones may be repurposed, but the lessons carved into survivors' lives must remain visible. Not for morbid fascination, not for entertainment, but for prevention. So the next girl might be believed. So the next predator might be stopped sooner. So isolation might be recognized as a warning sign, not a luxury amenity. This is the real work ahead. Not speculating about who visited the island, though accountability for all participants matters, but ensuring no island like it can operate again. Not anywhere, not ever. The survivors have done their part. They spoke, they testified, they endured cross-examination designed to destroy their credibility. They faced public shaming and legal intimidation. They persisted. Now the rest of us must do our part. Remember truthfully, act ethically, demand justice equally, and build systems where vulnerability is protected, not exploited. That is how we honor survivors. Not with conspiracy theories, not with sensational headlines, but with lasting change. The island was Epstein's creation. The future is ours to build. Let us build it wisely.